Welcome back to Rules of Engagement, Mechanics of the Bazaar. For a quick recap, last game we had a Terran vs Protoss build. Today we're going to go with a Protoss vs Protoss build. Next game is going to be a Zerg build, but one thing to keep in mind is the important part here isn't knowing the exact build. That's pretty cool, and if you want to see it, go to www.mlg.tv, check out the description in the VOD for this show, and it'll have a link to the actual replay. You can look at the exact build in detail. But what I was going to say is the important thing about this is learning how to dissect a build and try to understand what it's strong against, what it's weak against. That type of process is really helpful no matter what race you play, what builds you're looking at, and that's the type of process we're trying to teach here. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about the PvP Mass Phoenix play and a couple of things we're going to look at. One, similar to exactly what I did last game, this is a very simple build process. You think about the philosophy behind the build. Mass Phoenix in PvP has a pretty simple build philosophy. One thing you have to know is, first, you can only do it if you're safe from a timing attack, because if you're trying to build Stargates, they come attack you, that's going to be a little bit dicey. So you really only want to go for Mass Phoenix if your opponent is going for Colossi. If you're going Mass Charge at Archon or Mass Blink Stalker, they can really throw a much stronger timing attack at you because of the Warp Gate technology. So really important, only use a build like this that's weak to a timing attack when you're pretty sure that they can't throw a very strong timing attack at you. This is also going to be specific for a 2-base versus 2-base situation. Of course, you're not going to mass units off a single base. Next step of the philosophy is going to be the fact that Phoenixes can sometimes be a little bit weak in a straight-up engagement, but they're very, very fast. So you have to be comfortable using. You have to be comfortable with the fact that you might come into a base trade situation. So that's one thing you have to keep in mind there as part of the philosophy. And of course, the last part is that once you're comfortable in a base trade situation, then you can allow yourself to trade army for economy because you don't mind having a weaker army. You're not planning to directly engage your opponent in any case. Then we're going to look at some possible follow-ups. We'll get to that in a bit. And then we're going to ask ourselves, can this build become standard or not? So let's actually just jump into the game. And this is the situation of myself using this build. It was on Europe Ladder against a High Master, so not, MLG Dallas Fall Championship, but high level play nonetheless. And I think these situations I actually did see. I believe it was an MVP tournament. There was a Protoss Mirror on Tomb Valley where this almost exact same situation occurred. And these are both at the highest level of professional gamers. So this build does have merits at all levels of competition. Now, the first thing is the build philosophy. One, is it safe? Okay, I've already scouted him. I saw he was going for a Colossi follow-up. I know I'm pretty much safe from a time attack. If he's devoting all these resources into Colossi, he can't have the quantity of Blink Stalkers or Charge at Archon to threaten me for the next few minutes. Just a little bit of brief setup for you of how this game got set up. His standard Phoenix opening versus a Blink Stalker opening. He expanded once he saw he couldn't really do damage to me, and then of course I counter-expanded slightly behind him. He's doing what a lot of players do against Phoenixes, where they don't put probes at their expansion early on because they want to be able to protect all of them. Then once they get a few more units, then they'll take the probes down to the expansion. But for now, he's just trying to protect all of his workers. So here this is the point where I'm deciding to go for Mass Phoenix, right? I've realized he goes Colossi, so I get the +1 weapons, get the second Stargate. And meanwhile, right now, I'm not at the point where I can really feeling super comfortable trading army for economy. One of the purposes of these Phoenixes, they can run and lift probes. You may lose a few Phoenixes, but you kill their economy while you're building up your own. But right now, I don't feel super comfortable because what if he walks out and attacks me, right? So before I feel really, really comfortable doing that, I have to put myself in a position where I can do a really, really good base trade engagement. I'm going to do a couple pokes in here, and sometimes this is a mistake, sometimes it's good. We're just going to poke in here a little bit, see what we can see. I see only 5 Stalkers. I'm like, you know what? That's something to note, but my initial reaction was to back away. I probably could have gone and killed some probes. It depends where the next Stalkers are, right? If this other squad was close by, you could blink on top of me. That could be a little bit tricky. But for now, I want to preserve my Phoenix count. And the reason why I didn't want to trade Phoenixes there for Stalkers is because I'm going to pause it right here and show why it's better to have more and come in larger number. Because every Stalker they make, they have to split their Stalkers between 2 bases. Of course, I believe he actually saw my Phoenix with his probe. There was a probe came here to build a pylon, so he knows they're coming here. So in this case, he actually has them all concentrated. But in general, they'll have to split their Stalkers both ways. So every Phoenix you add is that Phoenix goes into your harass group. Every 2 Stalkers they add, only 1 Stalker goes into each individual anti-Phoenix defense group. The other point is to look at some of the math behind these numbers, okay? Stalker's damage. Versus Phoenix is 10, weapon speed 1.44. That's a little over 6 damage per second to a Phoenix. A Phoenix versus Light, 11 damage times 2. It's as if it's upgrades. Normally it's 10 damage times 2, 20 damage a hit. Weapon speed 1.1, that's about 18 damage per second. We're talking about Phoenixes doing about 3 times damage to Light units that Stalkers do to Phoenixes. Light units specifically in this case being probes. So this many Phoenixes could basically kill a ton of probes before you lose too many to Stalkers, which is why they're so great at harassing against just pure Stalkers. They come in here, lift up probe after probe after probe after probe after probe. Minimal losses, right? I mean, a couple will go down. Actually, it looks like I might even not quite getting costly. More and more probes. So do that harass. In openings of the game, I got about 4 probe kills. In that little sequence, I got about another 15 probe kills. And I think I lost maybe 2 Phoenixes. I think there was one right there and one right here. 1 or 2 Phoenixes. Of course, if you have better focus fire, could have been 3 Phoenixes, maybe even 4. But for, what do you say, about 16 probes, that's definitely worth it in the case that you're safe from a counterattack. Now, this is a little bit of misplay by my part, because am I really safe from a counterattack? If we grabbed those guys and went, actually, I probably could just beat his attack right now. By the time he crossed the map, I could get up to 14 Phoenix. Those would kill a Colossi fast and just reinforce with Zealots. Of course, I only have 2 Warp Gates right now, but I could Chrono Boost send more out. It would be a little bit dicey on my defense, but I think it might be possible. Now, let's talk about how it could have been much stronger against a counterattack if I wasn't so far ahead in this game. Let's actually jump to an overlay of the map. Excuse me real quick here. We're going to jump to a little overlay of Daybreak. There we go. And we're going to talk about this map as a general philosophy. So let's say, we already know that I'm in the bottom left, right? So we know that I'm right here. And we know my opponent, let me switch colors here real quick. We know that my opponent is going to be... Alright, well, the color thing's not switching. We're going to use the same color all the time here. And my opponent's going to be right over there, okay? And those are different spawns. So how can I make myself safe from an attack? Let's say we're going to use red from him from now on out. He's going to attack, maybe, let's say he's going to attack along the top angle, right down there, right? So what I could do to make myself safe is, blue's going to be me for now. I could have some Zealots right around here, right? Another thing I could do is, well, you could say, what if he attacks the other way? Well, I'll have some Zealots up here too. Okay? And then, because a Phoenix counterattack can't kill his buildings, you can't win the game with that. You have your Zealots split up here. If he wants to go and try to corner these Zealots, you're going to run around in a circle up this way, right? And then these Zealots are going to come in here, probably along this route, along here. And basically, it's going to be a base trade. Now you're saying, well, that's all well and good. You both lose your bases. That still doesn't help you. Even if you did this better thing by spreading your units out in the corners, you would still die. And I agree with you. The secret here is to have some extra probes over in this corner here. This is going to be probes over there. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have probes over here. Actually, we should just use P for... We'll use P for probe. That's a better illustration. So you have a couple probes down here. So as soon as you think I might go to a base trade, you just throw a Nexus in these corners, and all of a sudden he's going to spend the whole game running around after all your bases, and you kill his, you're mining the whole time, and you should be very, very comfortable in this situation. One thing to remember is he cannot split his army. If he splits his army in 2, your Phoenixes will come and kill whatever half is split up, so you're still in a great position no matter what. This is how to feel comfortable base trading. This is a very quintessential part of the aspect of this build. Let's get back in the game and talk about potential problems this build could have. So, I mean, this looks all well and good from here, but you could say, hey, wait a minute. What if, let's say he did mass charge a lot, charge at Archon timing, okay? If he did a mass charge at Archon timing, one thing you could run into is you could run into a problem where you basically can't get the Phoenix up because charge at Archons are really strong. Well, I think I kind of covered that early on when I said, well, if he goes Colossi, I mean, if he doesn't go Colossi, you don't do this build. But some people get 1 or 2 Colossi, then they'll crank out charge out and Archons like crazy, and that's actually the strongest response to this Mass Phoenix build, is just to transition from 1 or 2 Colossi into that. And in that situation, what you've got to do is you've actually got to kind of get less Phoenixes, and you're going to need you're going to need a wall and photon cannons to defend. And it's true that Colossi can take down the wall, but hopefully you can get, I said less Phoenixes, but you probably actually want plenty of Phoenixes, because you need to be sure to kill those Colossi and then fall back to your wall as a defensive point, while hopefully you're going Colossi, or maybe even transitioning to Void Rays behind it, because Void Rays actually do okay against Archons if they have, wall and cannons to support them. It's a little bit dicey, but with a proper wall, you're going to be safe. And the reason why you can afford to put all those resources into defense right here, you can just mass a big defense. You're like, well, what if they don't attack? If they don't attack, time's on your side. Charged Archon gets weaker as the game goes on, especially once you have your own Colossi. Charged Archon is not particularly good at defending Phoenix Harass. And also, you can split your army up, right? Let's say they stick an Archon to defend against your Phoenix Harass. Well, you bring in a War Prism, unload 6 Zealots. 6 Zealots will beat an Archon without a problem. And then any support, if they send their own Zealots to battle, your Phoenixes kill the Zealots. They kill Light instantly. So you have a lot of really good aggressive options. So they're kind of on a timer there if they're going to charge at Archon against Phoenix. So you can afford to make that wall in defense. The one problem you can do is if they take a very, very fast third as soon as they see it, and then go charge at Archon. And their charge at Archon build here isn't designed to bust your front, it's designed to deny your third. And that can be a pretty interesting game, because you can't really kill their third, you can harass, but then the question is, how much damage with harass can you do to equalize the fact that they have a greater economy from 3 bases? That's something that we should experiment with. That's something that if this build becomes mainstream, you'll see a lot of players experiment with it, and that's kind of a question about the build robustness. And that's something that I don't have an easy answer for you, how that game will play out. But that is a potential weakness to look into. Experiment with your friends there. If you're interested in checking out any of these replays, go to MLG.tv. Check out the VODs in those descriptions. Of course, they're not quite up yet, but they'll be up a couple hours after this broadcast. The description of the VODs has the links to the replays. We'll take a short break, and then we'll be back with Leenock versus Oz about Zerg Nidus play against Protoss.